Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carl. I'm a recovery coach here at Capital Recovery Center. This is our family meeting for the night. The article I picked here is Family Therapy That Helps Navigate Guilt, Growth, and Healthy Boundaries. And it goes to say, family therapy for addiction recovery helps loved ones navigate guilt, growth, and boundaries. When an individual struggles with a substance use disorder, the effects ripple outward, touching everyone who loves them. Addiction is often called a family disease, not because family members are to blame, but because the entire family unit is profoundly affected. Communication breakdowns, trust endures, and feelings of anger, fear, and confusion can take over. In the journey toward healing, it is not enough for only the individual using substance to receive help. Family therapy for addiction recovery provides a vital space for our entire system to heal, grow, and learn to navigate the future together. That's something that was taught to me and told to me in recovery that, like, it's just, I just didn't suffer. The family also suffers also, because I know for me, I put my family through a lot of stuff. And they also have to go through their recovery process. And that's why I always family therapy and family counseling and stuff like that, because it was hard for me and my family and my mom to like navigate communication. We didn't have healthy communication. It was tough when I got into recovery. I'm trying to learn and deal with my emotions and feelings, and they're dealing with theirs, and it's hard to communicate that. So like counseling and therapy, when you have somebody in the middle trying to navigate some communication skills, is always a benefit. It's a good factor of that, because I know for me, like we can get talked about, anger and frustration, guilt and shame. So all that stuff can affect just not us, but the family also. So I'm trying to put the captions on here. Let's see here. Oh, no. So, yeah, it's just not the individual that suffers, that family does also. This specialized form of therapy creates a guide environment where loved ones can begin to unravel the complex emotions tied to addiction. It is a process that helps family members understand the disease, addresses their own pain, and rebuild relationships on a new, healthier foundation. By focusing on guilt and growth and boundaries, family therapy becomes a cornerstone of lasting collective recovery. And that's a good part. Like I talked about, like the family member, have a better understanding of the disease of addiction, right? Like if somebody doesn't understand, right, how are they going to get the help? So it's always good for the loved ones to do like, I don't know, counseling and therapy to better understand what their loved one's going through. They also have to go through their process just as much as we do. So it's navigating the weight of guilt. Guilt is one of the most common and corrosive emotions within a family affected by addiction. The individual in recovery may feel immense guilt for the pain their actions have caused. Simultaneously, parents, partners, and siblings often grapple with their own sense of guilt, asking themselves painful questions. Did I do something to cause this? Could I have done more to prevent it? Did I enable the behavior by trying to help? This cycle of blame and self-blame creates a toxic environment that prevents true healing. Yeah, we come in with a lot of guilt and shame, man, and the family also can feel that, but they think they thought they played a part in it, and it wasn't their fault. My mom told me plenty of times, like, did I do something wrong? Could I have prevented it? It's no, not really.
Right.
Not really.
Not you.
Yeah, it's not you at all, right? But people and our friends and family, man, because we did a lot of, well, I mean, me personally, it caused a lot of trauma. We can, the things that we done and things that we said, that can warp their sense of thinking, like maybe they did something wrong or they keep playing that in their head. And I try to tell them like over and over again, like it was my doing. It's
Right.
nothing you did,
Yeah.
you know. And it's hard. Like they need their own process, man. You know, they need their own therapy and counseling, and sometimes they gotta go through her process just like I do. Um, but family therapy is always when somebody can get with and navigate some stuff instead of me and my mom going at it. It's usually not on. It's unhealthy, because I don't know how to convey my emotions, feelings. They don't know how to convey theirs, and it can be this one battle,
Right.
you know. Which we're not going to. We're trying to get to a solution. We're not trying to cause more harm, more pain, and cause more problems. So healthy communication is a key factor in recovery. Anyway, I'm not going to open up and be honest and tell somebody how I really feel, and we can work together. We don't have to go against each other. It was always a battle. It was always a battle going back and forth because I was doing wrong. They're trying to do right and tell me right, and I'm trying to do wrong. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
We're like parting ways.
We're
not going nowhere. We're going round and round and round. It says family therapy provides a safe and meditative space for addressing these feelings head on. A trained therapist helps each member understand that addiction is a complex disease with biological, psychological, and environmental roots, not a simple feeling of willpower or love. By internalizing the disease, families can begin to separate the person they love from the behaviors caused by substance use. This shift in perspective is incredibly liberating. It allows family members to release the burden of misplaced guilt and start communicating with honesty and compassion, fostering an environment conducive to healing family relationships. And that can be hard for some family members too, because my behaviors, what I was saying, what I was doing, it was a lot of negativity. Like I was doing a lot of bad stuff, but like it's like night and day. Like in active addiction, I was doing this. In recovery, I'm like getting better and doing right. So to like navigate and change the perspective, like that wasn't him. He was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. I wouldn't do more than half of the stuff that I did
Right.
In active addiction that I would do in recovery. That's just not who I am. To like separate that, take take Carl out of it. Look at the drugs and alcohol, what it does to him when he uses, and when he's not using. It's two different people,
Right.
So that can eliminate some of that guilt and shame and frustration and anger towards somebody. It's like, and I'm truly grateful for the relationships that I do have today. Like, a lot of them were amended. They don't hold on to that. And I was just talking to my sponsor the other day. Like, I'm surprised, like, when I do see people from my past, like, it's not like going to be a problem. You know what I mean? It was never like anger towards me, or because I did a lot of dirt. You know what I mean? So it's like they see that I'm doing good. They see I'm doing good and that I'm not using. You can just tell by looking at somebody. And so they just, I keep it cordial, and they're like, nice to see you, and really that's basically it. But there's no ill will between a lot of our past relationships, which I'm truly grateful for. It says fostering personal and collective growth. Recovery is a process of growth, not just for the individual who used substance, but for the entire family. Addiction often forces family members into unhealthy roles: the caretaker, the scapegoat, the hero, that stifles personal development. Family therapy encourages each person to step out of these rigid roles and rediscover their own identity. Yeah, so like it's funny, like not funny, but funny that like my mom was my caretaker. She took care of me all the time, supported me to the fullest. The scapegoat, I would use her as a scapegoat, and she would always come. It talks about the hero. She was always coming to save the day. I played the victim. I played my mom, to get what I wanted, and because I knew I could.
Right.
You ever heard this thing like I hurt the ones closest to me, and that's true. And like I knew my mom would and my family would always be there for me, so I would use that. It's just one of the ways that I use people to get what I wanted. And it's that's why I was filled with a lot of guilt and shame because of the things I was doing. If I wasn't doing these things, like today, I'm relieved of the guilt and shame because I'm not repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Like I'm not a taker today.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm a giver. I'm a helper. Like I help others. I don't take from others today. Because that's all I was. Take, 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 take. What can I get? Very selfish, self-centered. And I just wanted what I wanted. But it's fostering personal and collective growth. Recovery is a process of growth, not just for the individual who use substance, but for the entire family. Yeah, man. Like, I think it's definitely beneficial if you care about your loved ones and stuff like that. Get educated. When somebody's struggling with a disease of addiction, do the research. Because if you don't know, you don't know. And that can cause more harm. So try to get a better understanding of what the person's going through. Not just telling them what's wrong, how bad it is, or you know what I mean. That we're already filled with guilt and shame, and we're already beating ourselves up. Try to get a better understanding of what the person's going through and why they're doing the things that they're doing. Like I said earlier, healthy communication is key, and if therapy and counseling is needed, that's okay too. You know what I mean? We need help. I know I do. And I did therapy. I did counseling through the recovery process. It's beneficial. So it's for the family as a unit. Growth means learning new ways to communicate and solve problems. Family therapy sessions teach practical skills for expressing needs and listening with empathy instead of falling into old patterns or arguing or shutting down. Families learn how to have productive conversations, even when the topic is difficult. That's a good one. This new communication style strengthens the family bond and builds resilience, preparing them to face future challenges as unified team. This collective growth ensures that the family does not just return to the way things were before and evolves into a stronger, healthier, and more supportive unit. Yeah, like the relationships I have today are very strong, and they're healthy, because I worked on myself. I have better ways to cope with things,
Right.
As before, I didn't know how to communicate. It was always out of anger, frustration, yelling, or saying some nasty things, just my behavior and the way I treated myself and others was very unhealthy. I'm surprised that like my family stuck around the longest they did. But they loved and cared about me. And I think they seen something in me that I didn't see in myself.
Right.
It says establishing healthy boundaries for a new future. Perhaps one of the most critical skills learned in family therapy is the art of setting healthy boundaries in recovery. And in the chaos of active addiction, boundaries often become blurred or non-existent. Loved ones may have engaged in enabling behaviors like making excuses or providing financial bailouts out of love and fear. It says prolonging the cycle of substance use. Yeah, so I can relate to this. I got talk about bailouts like, always had warrants or I always had things on my back and always had fines and, can you please pay this? Can you know what I mean? She was the supporter. She would always bail me out. And it was out of love, you know what I mean? But she didn't know it was like the enabling part of it. She just didn't want me to hurt. She didn't want me to get locked up. She didn't want me to suffer, and she did what she could to prevent that. But sometimes, we need the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
We have to hit our bottoms, and it was hard. It's hard to see your loved one struggling, you know what I mean? And trying to support them, and you try to do anything's necessary for them not to suffer, but sometimes suffering it has to be, part of it, we have to endure the consequences. If there was no consequences to my actions, I would probably keep on continuing to do what I was doing. You know, so like I had to endure a lot of consequences to get where I'm at today. It says establishing boundaries is not about punishment. It is an act of love and respect for oneself and for the person in recovery. It involves clearly defining what is and what's not acceptable behavior. For a parent, a boundary might be, I love you and I will support your recovery, but will not give you money. For a partner, it could be, I am here for you emotionally, but I will not lie to cover for your actions. Yeah, we have to set them boundaries, man. Because that's all I did was cross boundaries. You tell me one thing, it didn't matter. I wasn't willing. Everything is about me. You know, disease of addiction, and I think as human beings, we're selfish and self-centered, you know, and we get what we want what we want at all costs.
And if you're on the other end and you have a kind heart, it's very hard.
Yeah. And we can take advantage of that.
Yes.
You know, so it's like, it's
and then
hard.
we become an enabler.
And we talked about that, enabling, right? But like, you're thinking that it's out of love. You don't want your family, your anybody to suffer. We love them, we care about them, and we try to lessen the impact of the consequences due to their actions.
Right. And we don't want them to, you know, get a bad heart against us or anything like that.
No ill will against us.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Yeah, it's like you're
hard
stuck
on both ends.
Yeah, you're stuck in between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
It's like, damn, you ever saying, damn if you do, damn if you don't? Prime example.
Yeah.
You know? But I see it today. Like, before I wanted my mom to help me at all costs, right? But today, when I see people in active addiction, right, and I'm loving and caring, I'm willing to help you. But I'm setting boundaries. I'm not going to, I've been through it. I've seen it, right? You can't get over on me. You can't put my wool in my eyes. I have to be, I'm not going to let you manipulate me, right? I'm not going to, I know when you're lying, right? So I can spot these things today.
And, you know, because of my son, now I can see that now that I've taken classes and I've been working with it and, you know, just experiencing all that.
Have you done, so you don't have to answer. So we're talking, the topic is family therapy that helps navigate guilt, growth, and healthy boundaries. Have you been through any therapy and stuff like that, counseling?
Yes. When my son was at Recovery of America, we went down there and we met with the therapist and everything.
Yeah.
We went all through that. I also got counseling on my own because of the guilt that I had felt that I couldn't help him. I couldn't save him, you know, the whole yards. I took my granddaughter when she was probably 5 because it was her father and she had you know, I wanted to make sure that she was okay.
Yeah.
It happened when she was like 3 and a half.
Traumatizing, you never know, might impact her.
And she went for several sessions and she did the art therapy. And she says she's fine. She still doesn't like to talk about it, but we just celebrated his 35th birthday last Wednesday.
Oh, happy birthday.
And we try to, like, we've done balloons in the past and she'll sing happy birthday.
Yeah.
This year I got my sisters together and his brother and her, and we went out and had ice cream.
So it's more like a celebration.
Yes, because I'm trying to make it easier on her because she doesn't talk.
Yeah. And
also her mother is incarcerated, so she hasn't seen her mother for like 4 years.
That's hard.
And you know, she's going to be in 11. She's had a rough time.
Yeah. Especially at that age.
And I have to be strong for her.
Give her another 3-4 years. She'll want to know for herself. She'll come to you.
The older she gets.
Yeah,
and
I've always told her, I've always been I've always been honest with her. I told her that her mother and her father both had some health issues and they needed to go away and get better.
Yeah.
And the reason that I took custody of her was to protect her. I'll never replace mommy. I'm always going to be mama.
Yeah.
I'm never going to replace papa. But you do have other siblings that live with the other set of grandparents. They're half. I said, but I'll never keep you from them. And she goes every other weekend to see them. Because I want that's still that bond
Oh, yeah,
with
for
them.
sure. The family
You know, it
bond,
had
yeah.
nothing to do with the children.
That's all healthy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I try.
But yeah, with like the family therapy and stuff like that, to me, it's like beneficial because sometimes we don't, you as, the recovery, the addict and the family member, there's a lot of things, anger, frustration, you said guilt, shame. I'm going through mine, you're going through yours.
Yes.
Sometimes we don't know how to convey.
Well, it was very difficult because I'm the one that found him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have that, in my mind.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Today I can say it without bawling, because I know that he's not suffering anymore
Mm-hmm.
and he's not living on the streets. And there's nothing I couldn't have done anymore.
That's where the process of like therapy, the counseling, or going to support groups and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we didn't do all this stuff, where would we be at? If we didn't do counseling, therapy,
Absolutely.
and support, we just held it and didn't do anything at all.
And
It'd be
that's one of the
terrible.
reasons we had that support group, not to get off the subject, but to help other individuals to get through that grief and all that pain, even though you're always going to feel that love because you're always going to love your child. And it's the worst
Of course.
thing
It's
that
not
you
gonna
could
go
ever
anywhere.
lose. But there's a way that you can roller coaster through it. And I like doing the group to help others.
Yep. We can use our painful experience, right,
Mm-hmm.
as for good.
Yes.
We help others.
Mm-hmm.
Purpose.
And and I have. Before we started the group and stuff, and before I became the CPRS, a neighbor reached out. Well, actually, it was on Facebook, and somebody wanted to hurt her son because he was doing different things out my way. And I reached out to her, said, if anybody knows this mother, have her contact me. So I helped him, and he's been in recovery for 6 years now.
Check that out.
Yes.
One help or another, you never know where your
Yes.
help's going to come from.
Mhm.
Says these boundaries create structure or safety, and predictably they protect the well-being of family members and create an environment where the individuals in recovery is encouraged to take responsibility for their own choices. Family therapy provides the guidance and need to set these boundaries with love, communicate them effectively, and hold them firmly. But compassionately, this practice is fundamental to breaking the cycle of codependency and building a future based on mutual respect and trust. And boundaries is a hard thing to put, especially with family members.
And
Loved
trust,
ones.
because once you lose that trust,
Yeah.
it's very hard.
Hard to get that
And you
back.
don't mean to come off like that.
No, but it's like, think about it. If I'm not trustworthy, and I keep on repeating the same thing over,
Mhm.
how can I trust you?
Great. I understand that, but on the other side,
I'm gonna
I want
make-
to
I'm
so
gonna make you
bad.
feel guilty for not trusting me, so I'm gonna play you,
Yes. Mhm.
because that's what we're good at,
Yes.
And you might not see in the midst of it, but when you're on the other side of it and you're out of it, you
Mhm.
still through it.
Oh, I've seen it with my son. I mean, he has stolen so much things throughout the house.
Yeah.
He wrote checks from my father's account. I mean, I seen it all, and I was like in denial for the longest time.
Mhm.
And until my father came over and says, I have bad news for you. I said, what do you have? He goes, go get your son. He says, we're going to the police station. Boy, was that a hard thing to
Oh,
take.
I bet.
But I knew that my father had to do it.
Yeah. If he's gonna keep on doing it.
And I wasn't mad at my father. I was hurt.
Yeah. A lot of mixed emotions and feelings.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It says begin healing your family today. It says addiction may have strained your family's connections, but it does not have to be the end of your story. With the right support, you can heal the wounds of the past and build a stronger, more connected future together. Yeah, beginning of your family today, man. So, like, because if we love our family members, I was saying earlier that we have to have a better understanding of the disease of addiction. If you're one struggling,
And sometimes that's hard because if one person understands the disease
mhm.
and the other partner does not and not willing to understand because
there's
they
gonna be a
have that
lot of-
tunnel.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
we talked about that before. Yeah, there's gonna be it's gonna be a lot of battles. There's gonna be a lot of arguments. It's just what it is. Like,
And then you grow further apart.
yeah. So that's why when everybody's on board, when you have family therapy and counseling, everybody wants to get better, but we have to do it together, not alone.
Yeah.
So that was our family meeting for today, family therapy that helps navigate guilt, growth, and healthy boundaries. My name is Carl, I'm a recovery coach here at Capital Recovery Center. Until next time, we'll see you later.
Oh, that's right. I'm not on camera this time.
Mhm.